The scent of disinfectant couldn't mask the weight of desperation that hung in the hospital corridors like morning fog. Maria Gonzalez pushed her cleaning cart down the pediatric wing, her weathered hands gripping the handle as if it were an anchor in a storm she'd been weathering for 3 years now. At 52, she had learned that life's cruelest lessons often came wrapped in the sterile white walls of places meant to heal. She paused outside room 314, hearing the familiar sound of a father's broken voice reading Goodnight Moon for what might be the 100th time that week. Through the partially open door, she glimpsed 7-year-old Emma Chen, her bald head barely visible above the mountain of blankets, and her father David hunched in the uncomfortable hospital chair that had become his second home. Maria had been cleaning the swing long enough to recognize the rhythm of hope and heartbreak. She'd seen families arrive with suitcases full of optimism and leave with nothing but memories. But something about the Chen family had worked its way into the carefully guarded corners of her heart. Perhaps it was the way David never missed a bedtime story, even when Emma was too weak to keep her eyes open. Or maybe it was how Emma always managed a smile when Maria entered to empty the trash, asking about her day as if she weren't fighting the battle of her young life. 3 months ago, Maria had made a decision that went against every practical instinct she possessed. David had mentioned, in one of their brief hallway conversations, that he'd had to quit his job as an accountant to care for Emma full-time. The medical bills were mounting, insurance covered only so much, and he was drowning in debt that seemed to multiply faster than his daughter's medical needs. That night, Maria had gone home to her small apartment and looked at the envelope she kept hidden beneath her mattress. Inside were the bills she'd been saving for years, money meant to bring her own daughter, Sofia, from Guatemala. Sofia, who was now 16 and living with Maria's aging mother, waiting for the day they could be reunited. The immigration lawyer had quoted $15,000. Maria had saved $11,000 over 8 years of night shifts, weekend work, and skipping meals. She had stared at that envelope for hours, thinking about David's hollow eyes and Emma's brave smile. By morning, she had made her choice. The next day, Maria had approached David with a story. She told him about a hospital assistance program she'd heard about, one that helped families with medical expenses. No questions asked. She pressed an envelope containing $5,000 into his trembling hands, watching as this proud man broke down in tears of gratitude and relief. She did it again the following month, and then again. Each time, she told him the program had approved another disbursement. She watched David's shoulders straighten a little more each time, saw how he could focus entirely on Emma when the weight of financial ruin wasn't crushing him. Sofia called every Sunday. "Mama, when am I coming to America?" Her daughter would ask in Spanish, her voice carrying across the thousands of miles between them. Each time, Maria would promise soon, Mija, soon, even as she watched her savings dwindle and her daughter's dream slip further away. But today felt different. There was an electricity in the air, a sense that something was about to shift. As Maria approached Emma's room with her cleaning supplies, she heard voices she didn't recognize, official sounding, crisp with authority. "Mr. Chen, I'm from the hospital's financial assistance department," a woman's voice was saying. "We've been reviewing your account, and frankly, we're confused. Our records show significant anonymous donations being made toward your daughter's treatment, but we have no documentation of any assistance program making these payments." Maria's heart stopped. She pressed herself against the wall, her cleaning cart forgotten. "I don't understand." David's voice was uncertain. "The cleaning lady, Maria, she told me about the program. She's been bringing me the assistance checks." "Sir, we don't have any record of such a program. And frankly, these donations appear to be coming from someone's personal account. We need to investigate this further." Maria felt the world tilt. She had been careful, but not careful enough. She had used money orders, tried to make it look official, but hospitals kept meticulous records. Of course they would eventually notice. She was about to turn and flee when she heard Emma's weak voice. "Daddy, who's Maria?" "She's the cleaning lady, sweetheart. She's been helping us." "The lady with the kind eyes? The one who always asks about my drawings?" "Yes, that's her." There was a pause, and then Emma's voice, stronger now. "Daddy, She's always sad when she thinks no one is looking. I see her sometimes, staring at the picture in her wallet. Is that her little girl? Maria's hand instinctively went to the wallet in her pocket, where she kept the only recent photo she had of Sophia. I think so, Ma. She gives me her crackers from lunch sometimes. She says she's not hungry, but I think she just wants me to have them. The financial administrator's voice cut through the moment. Mr. Chen, we need to speak with this Maria immediately. Maria took a deep breath and stepped into the room. I'm Maria. The room fell silent. David stared at her, understanding dawning in his eyes like a terrible sunrise. The administrator, a stern woman in a navy suit, looked her up and down with obvious disdain. Ma'am, are you the source of these anonymous donations? Yes. And you told Mr. Chen they were from an assistance program? Yes. The administrator's voice turned cold. Ma'am, what you've done could be considered fraud. You've misrepresented yourself and potentially violated hospital policies. We'll need TOA. Wait. David's voice cut through the accusation. He was staring at Maria with an expression she couldn't read. How much did you give us? Maria's voice was barely a whisper. $15,000. The number hung in the air like a blade. David's face went white. That's everything, isn't it? That was your savings. Maria nodded, unable to speak. What was it for? He asked, though somehow she knew he already suspected. My daughter, in Guatemala. Immigration fees. To bring her here. The room was so quiet Maria could hear her own heartbeat. Emma was looking back and forth between the adults, her young mind trying to process what she was witnessing. Then Emma spoke, her voice clear and certain. Daddy, look, it's her. Everyone turned to Emma, confused. The angel, Emma continued, her eyes fixed on Maria. Remember when I was really sick last month, and I told you I saw an angel? You said it was the medicine making me see things, but it wasn't. It was her. She was standing right there, crying and praying in Spanish. I pretended to be asleep, but I saw her. She's our angel, Daddy. David stood up slowly, as if his legs might give out. He walked over to Maria, this woman who had sacrificed everything for strangers, and did something that surprised everyone in the room. He hugged her. Thank you, he whispered into her shoulder. Thank you for saving my daughter. The administrator cleared her throat. This is very touching, but the fact remains. Stop. David's voice was firm as he stepped back, keeping one hand on Maria's shoulder. This woman gave everything she had to help my family. If anyone should be investigated, it should be a healthcare system that forces people into these impossible choices. He turned to Maria. What's your daughter's name? Sophia. How old is she? 16. David nodded and pulled out his phone. I'm calling my brother. He's an immigration lawyer. Pro bono work is his specialty. He paused, looking directly into Maria's eyes. Emma's treatments are covered now. My insurance finally came through from my new job. But we're not done here. We're going to bring Sophia home. The administrator started to protest, but David held up his hand. And if you have any problem with how Maria helped us, you can take it up with the media. I'm sure they'd love to hear about the hospital that punished an employee for showing extraordinary kindness to a dying child's family. 3 months later, Maria stood in the airport arrival gate, her hands shaking as she held a sign that read Sofia Gonzalez. Behind her stood David, Emma now in remission and growing back her hair, and David's brother Michael, the immigration lawyer who had worked tirelessly to expedite Sofia's case. When Sophia walked through the gate, 16 years old and beautiful, with her mother's kind eyes and her father's determined chin, Maria collapsed into sobs that came from 8 years of separation and sacrifice. As mother and daughter held each other, Emma tugged on Maria's sleeve. Now you have your little girl back too, she said simply. Later, at the small celebration dinner David had insisted on hosting, Emma stood up with the solemnity that only children who have faced mortality can possess. I want to say something, she announced. My daddy always told me that angels are real, but I didn't believe him until I got sick. Then I met Maria, and I learned that angels don't always have wings. Sometimes they have cleaning carts and kind hearts, and they give up everything to help people they barely know. She looked directly at Maria. You saved my life, but more than that, You showed me what love looks like when it's bigger than just your own family." Maria wiped her eyes and looked around the table at these people who had somehow become her American family. Sofia squeezed her hand and whispered in Spanish, "Mama, you did the right thing." And for the first time in years, Maria believed that maybe, just maybe, the universe had a way of rewarding the kind of love that asks for nothing in return. Outside, snow was beginning to fall, and somewhere in the distance, a church bell chimed the hour. It sounded like hope,